All right. Thank you very much. If you're just joining me, this is going to be episode one of the Dayo Samuel Report. And I'm actually kickstarting this podcast today because I've kind of procrastinated this podcast for a while because I wanted to get everything perfect. I didn't even want to start this podcast as just myself. I wanted to have a co host so as to make it a lot more interesting. But while I wait for a co host, I want to get this going and not waste any further time. And because I'm very aware of the fact that even when I'm waiting, a lot more persons are actually looking to make progress with their lives. So I want this to be more of a conversation that I'm going to be having. So every single time I jump on this podcast, the podcast may probably be live like this, or sometimes maybe pre-recorded, but I envisage that this podcast is going to be every week, every now and then. And I'm humbly calling the podcast for now the Dayo Samuel Report. That is so as to match with my newsletter, which goes out every 2 weeks to multi-passionate, multi-creatives, multi-potentialites who are trying to build a business out of their multi-potentiality, and also especially those who have jobs and are passionate about something else. I want to build a side business out of that. So if you're just meeting me, I am Dayo Samuel. Thank you very much for joining me for today. And what I want to do today is I want to quickly take you through a simple journey that I found in my 20 plus years of being in existence. Actually, 30 plus years of being in existence, 20 plus years of being a creator. I actually started my journey being a creator back in 2010 when I was still in Nigeria. And I began to run something called Young and Strong. And from Young and Strong, we gradually morphed into what became Audacity to Lead in 2014. And in 2014, March, that should be either March, April, May, June 2014, one of those, I launched my first podcast back then. So this podcast is more like a resumption of that podcast, but this time in a completely new direction. Again, just as I named this podcast at this point is going with the name the Dayo Samuel Report so as to match with my current newsletter and to be able to house everything under one place. All right. So, what I want to do in today's episode, this initial episode, is to actually share with you how jack of all trades become experts. Now, in my experience of being a jack of all trades, and just to let you know a little about my background, I started off as a designer and a musician. Now, when I say I started out as a designer and a musician, I mean back in 2004, 2005, 2006, I was literally spending hours upon hours creating music, creating new songs, writing songs. And I got to the point where I was almost signed by a manager. And then I went to the university. When I went to the university, I remember one night I was sitting with I was sleeping actually, and my dad woke me up and asked me that, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And I turned on my bed and looked at him, eye to eye, and I said, I don't know. And he felt very disappointed with me that I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. At that point, I was already close to, I think I was probably 19 years, 20 years thereabout. I think that should be maybe 17, 18, 19, 20 thereabout. And he asked me that, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And I replied that, I don't know. Because at that point, I was still trying to figure everything out. Today, I'm not figuring everything out so much because that was way almost 20 years ago that conversation happened. But I still remember that conversation vividly in my head because since then, it's been one of my guiding passion to not let other people who are experiencing that to go the way I probably have gone. And of course, even though I've made some success out of my own experience, I've made some success some along the way. It's something that can be avoided if you have someone who could guide and provide you with a lot of clarity, a lot of insights as to what next action you can take. And I believe it's best done by someone who's been there and done that. And I can tell you from over 10 years of experience that yes, I've been there and done that. So I started off as a someone who was interested in music. who also wanted to design. And I remember 2002, I went to a computer school to learn how to design. I went to that computer school to learn how to design, and I remember starting with CorelDRAW 8 and Photoshop 7. That was what was available at that time. And I started using those to actually create designs. And then I went to the university in 2006. And in 2006, I think in 2006, I think maybe 20 years thereabout, if I'm correct. And yes, that's 2006, I was 20 years. I went to the university, and again, I just went with any course I was given, and I was given a Greek economics and extension. And I felt that, oh, at least I finally have a university admission. After having tried for 4+ years trying to get an admission into the university, that it wasn't possible. What happened was, when I was in the university, I was on my way from one campus to the other campus, and I saw a design studio called Industrial Design Studio. And I decided to go there, that what's happening in this industrial design studio. And I found that, oh, there's actually a course that can help you become a designer. And I was like, wow, really? So I asked, what are the requirements for me to come into this department? They said, simple, just go back, take that's Joint Admission Matriculation Board back then. And again, when I said that I was trying to get a university admission, I'd tried the same jump 8 different times before then, trying to get, doing PCE, UME, doing PCE, UME. If you're from Nigeria, you probably understand what I'm referring to. Now, after having gone through all of that, and I went back and I said, okay, now I want to become a designer. This is what I need to do. I asked, what's the mark and all of that, and they gave me all the information. For the first time in my entire life, I successfully passed that JAMB exam. And that was when I began to understand that sometimes it is not the fact that we cannot do something, it's the fact that we don't have a specific focus that we are channeling all our energies to. Because I remember when I was trying all that jump, all that exam at that point, one of the constant things I was being told by a counselor at that time was that, and actually that reminds me now, that's how long I've been in counseling. And I remember the person telling me that the reason that, how do I study, how do I do this, and I told her that anytime I'm studying, I'm listening to music so as not to sleep off. And she told me that it's because I'm distracted. Now, when she said it, that I'm distracted, that distraction became a label that I was being told every time, that you are too distracted, you are not focused, you are this, you are that, you are this, you are that. Sorry about that if you heard any sound there. But what I later realized is the fact that, and I just want to know if you can hear me. If you're live on YouTube and you can hear me, please say yes so that I know that you can hear me. I just want to know that you can hear me. So I'm moving my mic up so that I know that people can hear me right now. All right. So if you can hear me, just please say hi or type something on YouTube so that I know that you can hear me. Now, when I found that I could actually the okay, I stopped at the subject of focus. The subject of focus actually became a label that was placed on, such that every time I need to do anything, was feeling as though, you know what, Daya, you're not even focused. You don't even know how to do anything, and blah 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 blah, and all of that. So I want to leave. So I'm trying to put a link on Twitter just in case people want to join this show. That's what I quickly tried to do. So jumping back into the show. All right. Hopefully, I'm going to be able to edit all of that out. And by the way, that's why I want to actually do it as a live show, because I realize that when I do it as live, it gives me this sense of accountability. It gives me the sense of I have to deliver, I have to do something. Anyway, going back to my story of how me being a jack of all trades became an expert. So what I realized was that I began to that label became something that was negative experience for me that I had to deal with for a long part of my life. Um, More likely over 10 years of my life that I struggled with that. And the struggle was because my parents did not understand that I was this person who had interest in multiple things, and they weren't able to manage that. Now, today, I have a daughter who's like that. And so far, I'm managing her because she says she wants to be a chef, she wants to be a cook, she wants to be a chef, she wants to be a policeman, she wants to be a doctor, and she wants to be, what's the fourth thing? There were four things that she always says she wants to be. Every time I ask her that, what do you want to be? She will say the same four things. And I'm like, wait, when I was young too, I was like that. I remember at the point I wanted to be like Michael Jackson. At some point, I wanted to be like King Sonny Ade. Those were music influences I had. I wanted to be like Tupac, so I was writing raps. I wanted to be like Notorious B.I.G., so I was writing rap. I wanted to be like Eminem, so I rapped. In fact, I can literally rap for you right now. If you want me to rap, just leave a comment and say I should rap. I'll probably rap for you. But all of that helped me understand this entire journey of being a jack of all trade, a multipotentialite, a polymath, a generalist, depending on the language that you use to call that. Now, what I found was, after all of that, as I got into the university and began to study design, I began to learn that even though I'm interested in a lot of things, whenever I focus all my energies on one thing, it helps me to actually make more sense of what's going on at that point at any time in my life. So, me being a jack of all trade, me being a generalist, me being a multi-potential, me being a polymath, depending on the title or label that you use, this has been my experience. And what I want to do with this podcast is to help you understand how to actually become, whether you want to become an expert. Now, notice an expert does not necessarily have to have a specialty. And that is the fundamental myth that I've realized that a lot of people have about being an expert. They think if you have to be an expert, you have to be an expert who has a specialized niche. Now, you do not necessarily have to have a niche. In fact, very soon I'm going to share with you a model that's going to help you put all of this into context so that you will see the path that we go when you are from someone who's very confused about what your niche is, whether you, what you can do with your jack of all trade, to somebody who becomes a specialized expert. And when I say specialized expert, I'm not saying that you are specializing in the sense of abandoning everything else to focus on one thing, which was something I also encountered back in 2010. I remember at that in 2010, I was being told that this one thing you have to do. That's because, of course, I come from a Christian background. And so I was being told that this one thing you do, this one thing you do. So you have to quit everything else and focus on one thing. And I struggled a lot with that throughout my journey. I so much struggled with it such that even when I started a ministry back then, the ministry could not find one single thing that this is one single thing that the ministry was doing. The ministry was like an embodiment of multiple things. There was the counseling part of the ministry, there was the leadership part, there was the sex and relationship part, there was the pastoral mentorship part, there was the young leaders part. So there was a lot that were going on at that point. And I realized that it's not every single person who knows about business that can actually help those of us who are jack of all trades. Now, it's okay when somebody who is a specialist actually tells you that, oh, you need to specialize. What they don't know is that they don't understand your experience. And they may say it from the point of, oh, they've been a jack of all trades, they too they learned to specialize because this is how business works. Yes, it is true. In business world, specialization or niche is how you separate a business from another business. Now, to break your heart here, or to break their heart, and to give you a little clue here, is that niching was not meant for humans. Original concept of niching came from opening in a wall. That is, if I break this wall above my head right now, if I break it open right now, let me use this. If I break it open right now and there's a hole in this wall, that's a niche. Something needs to fill up that niche. And that's exactly what a niche is. So in business, niche is about that opening, that opportunity that an entrepreneur sees and says, okay, I'm going to go and fill up that opportunity. That becomes the niche for that entrepreneur. Now, it works for business, but it doesn't work when you are trying to be a human being. And if you want to be a human being, almost every human being I know tends to be interested in more than one thing. So you can't judge every single person by the fact that you are interested in one thing, and so everybody else should be interested in one thing. In fact, not everybody else is interested in one thing. Anyway, all that I'm saying here is been there, I've done that, I've experienced what it means to be a jack of all trade. I've gone through, and by the way, over the years, I've read all manner of books about being a generalist, being a specialist, being an expert, being all of that. In fact, I created a system that I once began to teach people that I learned from the E-Myth Mastery and a couple of other books like that. that has helped me. Now, what I want to do with this podcast again is to share with you all of this research that I've learned over time. Since 2010 and since 2014, all the research, all the studies I've done, I want to begin to share them with you so that as you are a generalist, a multipotentialite, a polymath, a jack of all trades, so that you can actually find your place in the world. Now, how am I going to do it with this podcast, perhaps? Now, for this first episode, what I want to do is to show you a journey that jack of all trades go through in order to become experts. Now, notice I don't say in order to find a niche. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in order for them to become an expert. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to actually share my screen. I'm going to be drawing on my screen. So you are going to be seeing my drawing here. All right. So let's say this is a jack of all trade here. So let's define this person here. Let's define this person here as a jack of all trades. Jack of all trades. Now, this jack of all trade here, how they become recognized as an expert. That's what I'm trying to share here. Again, I'm not trying to show you how to find niche right now because there's a way to find a niche. And I've begun to share with people, you don't actually find your niche by focusing on the same things that other people focus on. So there are 4 steps actually involved. So 2, 3, 4. Now, if you're a jack of all trades, you're a multi-potentialite, you are a generalist, and you're trying to become an expert in something. The first thing you need to deal with is to actually master fear. And when I say fear, let me not even call it fear. Let me call it master your, let's call it master your personal. So let's say master your personal barriers. So let's call it master your personal barriers. Now, for this personal barrier, there are 3, 4 things involved. So that's the first step. You need to master your personal barriers. That includes fear, doubt. Now, for both of these, what you are looking for is when you have doubt, you're looking for clarity. And when you are afraid, you're looking for confidence and courage. That's basically what you're looking for. Now, this part here, the reason why you're afraid, the reason why you are doubtful is not because you don't know how to do things. It's not because you cannot do things. It's basically because there's this element of being certain, being clear that you don't have yet. And if you actually think about it, just as I shared with you now, for many of us who are jack of all trades, our fear, our doubt comes from the fact that we have something called inner critic. This inner critic deals with us. And in fact, based on some of the things that I teach, there are 7 types of inner critic. There's the taskmaster who tells you that you are not doing what you're meant to do. I can continue to tell you all of that, but perhaps we'll cover all of that in further episodes. But I want you to understand that this fear is the first thing you need to master. Because if you can master it, it gives you the confidence to own you being a jack of all trades, to own who you are, to be that person who actually says, I don't give a damn about what anybody else says. I'm going to be who I am. And by the way, that's what I always refer to as the audacity to lead, because that's the courage you need to lead your life and business in the direction that matters the most to you. I always say that because that's the thing that really matters. Now, after you've mastered your personal superpower, the second thing you want to master will be to master your personal superpower. Notice that you've mastered personal barrier. Next thing is you want to master your personal superpower. Now, your personal superpower is what separates you from everybody else. Now, that could include your top 3 skills, passions, interests, nailing that. That could include a model that I teach called your wit, your why, your wow, and your wisdom. Now, your wit is the things that you do. the things that you know and you can impart on other people. Your why is why everything else matters. Your wow is the things that excite you, all the different passions, all the different interests that you have. And your wisdom is accumulated knowledge, experience, skills that you've acquired over the years. Now, in order to actually master your personal superpowers, the interesting thing is you can't master your personal superpower by focusing on just one skill or just one interest, which is why I always say that a lot of the things that are being taught about niching does not really apply to those of us who are multipotentialites. It cannot apply. Now, once you master your personal superpower, the third thing you do is so once you master your personal superpower, you master personal superpower, you master your barrier. The next thing you want to do is you want to begin to work on your IP and content strategy. Content strategy. And when I say IP, that's intellectual property. What that means is you need to begin to develop a unique intellectual property that captures, that um, utilizes everything that you are, all that you are. And what I mean by that is when I say IP and content strategy, this is what I mean by this is where you actually begin to create what only you can create, not something else that AI can generate, because you are multifaceted. You create what only you can create as being multifaceted. Now, the last thing here is for you to now begin to work on digital products. Now, this digital product is what a lot of you know some people with. They've been able to come all the way to this place, and what you're saying them or how you are saying them now is basically, oh, this is this person, this is that. What you may not know is that they've come through all of these parts before they get to this part. So these are the 4 steps that I know has helped me and can help literally anybody who identifies as a jack of all trade, as a multi-potentialite, as a this is how you can become an expert in doing that. Because when you follow this path, and by the way, this is not the only way that works. So don't think that this is the only thing that you can do, or this is the only way that it works. There are several other ways that can work, but this is what has worked for me. In my own case, is the fact that I realized that yes, I was dealing with fear. So I treated or handled that fear. Then I realized that there is something unique about me that other people don't have. And then I began to narrow it down, began to drill it down, or what I call, I began to distill what differentiates me from other person. And the next thing is I began to work on my intellectual property and my content strategy. If you check the history of probably anything that I've done, you probably see that the way I create my content, the way I create things is a little bit different from how everybody else creates theirs. Yes, you may learn hacks, tactics from other people, but ultimately you want to create what only you can create. And of course, as you move from that, you get to digital products where you begin to create a digital product, or in some cases, services that you can offer to people. Now, over the course of this podcast, I'm going to be going deep into each of these steps, trying to show you how all of this works as a multi-potentialite. So this is me right here saying this is the new podcast, the Dayo Samuel Report. And I hope that over time, I'm going to be able to share more with you about some of these things and how you can, as a jack of all trade, to be able to monetize your multi skills, um, capture, package, and sell what you know and what you've mastered over the years. Sell that to people as an expert, as a creator, coach, consultant, in whatever format that you want to do. All right. Thank you very much for joining me again. This is Dayo Samuel signing out. And I hope that what I've shared with you today has given you a little bit of courage and the necessary insights you need to lead your life and business in the direction that matters to you. And that's so that you can begin to create only what only you can create. I'll see you in the next episode.